welcome everybody. This is the inaugural episode of the I Want a Bleeping Job podcast. My name is Mike Kline. I'm going to be your host. I don't know what the goal is of the podcast just yet. The idea is that there are lots of people out there, like my first guest today, and myself, who love what we do for a living, and we want to keep doing it. But the world is not cooperating with that. So my idea is to have this podcast and talk to people like that and let them vent a little. We're going to laugh a little bit. Hopefully, I can help give them a leg up and get some eyeballs on their talents and skills. So that's the idea here. This is our first episode. My first guest of all time is Bryan Ward. Bryan and I go back a few years. Bryan I first met him when he was the CEO of Giant Ideas, which was an advertising agency in Pittsburgh. And Bryan's company did a rebrand for my previous employer, the Society for Protective Coatings, also known as SSPC. And so that's how we know each other. But Bryan, I'll let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background and tell the folks, who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's really great to be here on the inaugural episode of something yet to be determined. And maybe that's a good title. But no, I've been the creative marketing art director, creative director, CEO, CMO for the past 40 years. And back in 2001, I picked up stakes and started my own agency. And over the next decade, grew it into one of the fastest growing creative agencies in the country with 42 employees and millions of dollars in billing. And then in 2012, coming out of the Great Recession and the switch over, decided to close it down. And basically since then, for the last decade, I've been doing consultant work, contract work, coming into agencies, businesses, helping entrepreneurs grow their business or realize their dreams, or saving companies, managing mergers and acquisitions, doing all kinds of crazy things that I thought I never really thought about doing before. The last one was for $1 billion company out of California called Noggin, and built a marketing company there, hired 8 people, launched new products, and then helped the company through a very complicated SPAC process to go public on the NASDAQ, and successfully managed to do that. And then that was about a year and a half ago, about 18 months ago. And so for the last 18 months, strangely enough, I've been working on a board game based on MMO, which is a video game called EVE Online, and helping a company in Poland and working with the parent company in Iceland to launch a Kickstarter, which we launched back in February of this year and raised close to $1 million for the Kickstarter. And then my time in that was finished up in July. Although I've been doing some work for them. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I sent the final piece of artwork that I finished for them over Dropbox. And and I've been looking for, what's next. But I've not been sitting around just, writing resumes and doing that. I've been promoting my YouTube channel and creating new content on a daily basis. And I'm involved in a gaming community called Just About, which launched a little over a year ago. So I was a founding member of that. That's an entrepreneurial video game based community. So I've been working with them, trying to help them grow. I worked with a company out of California that's launched. It's called Medicinal Media, which is like a positive, reinforced, sort of self-positive community that they launched. I did some artwork for them and some articles for them to help them get off the ground. And so I've just been staying busy, being creative every day, working on my illustrations and artwork, and trying to wait around to see what would happen next. I've been doing a lot of networking, grabbing coffees with people. pretty much, every couple of weeks I'm having coffee with somebody and meeting with people and talking about, things and trying to help them with their business. I've been working with an agency for 2 years out of Minneapolis, who's trying to grow and been trying to help them. It's a old friend of mine who has done a startup, agency business in outside of Minneapolis, and been, trying to do the best I can to help him grow. So, it's just a lot of irons and a lot of fires.
So first of all, I want to know what's on your YouTube channel.
Right.
But then of course I want to know what are you looking to do? Because I know you and I talked about, you've been looking for work looking to catch on somewhere full time. What is your ideal scenario there?
Well, if I had to pick an ideal scenario, I think what I really really enjoy doing is collaboration and working with a team of creatives, whether that's marketing or advertising or design. It's having a problem and having and finding a way to solve that problem. That's always been what really gets the fire going. Something that can't be accomplished, or a company that's in dire straits or needs help, and working together with a team of people to come up with a solution. And everybody putting forth their best efforts and their talents and being a mentor, helping to guide and direct that effort, in whatever environment that would happen to be in. I think that that's really my best, use, is being that person to, bring the wealth of experience that I've had, with the thousands of clients that I've worked with in my career and to the table and help a company or, either internally or externally, either as a third party consultant or as someone who's on the inside, driving that change, and growth and expansion. That was sort of where I think my sweet spot is.
Yeah, so it sounds like you are, let's say, industry agnostic, right? I mean,
Hmm.
your skill set goes anywhere.
Yeah, I've worked with and across all silos, really. I mean, I can't imagine, there's not many silos that I haven't, have some experience with. Being in advertising, one of the things I really enjoyed about that was working with so many different clients in different industries, nonprofits and straight to consumer and business to business and, I've done sports marketing with the Penguins and the Pirates and the Steelers and and on and on and on. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't think of a category that I haven't touched, and
What's been your favorite? I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with your illustrations, and I know you've been doing your Monday morning comic on LinkedIn, which I've
right,
enjoyed.
right.
So what's been your favorite so far, as far
Um,
as experiences?
as far as working with, I think sports has a lot of, interest to me. I think that probably any guy our age would really probably love to be, on the ice with Mario Lemieux
Yeah,
and Ben Roberts and the team from the Miracle on Ice. It's hard it's hard to change that, but because that's just like a dream, right? You're living a dream, and so that's always fun. But nonprofits really for me, that's where just when you feel like you're doing something for the betterment of mankind in some way, or helping, people who are in trouble, or a few years back, we talked about this a little bit before, but I was having a meeting with a doctor, and he was explaining to me about he's an anesthesiologist, and he was running the anesthesiology department at UPMC, and but he also ran a clinic on the side, in the evenings and on the weekends, helping opioid addicted patients. And so he was telling me about it. Excuse me. And I said, "How do you get to be a doctor doing that?" And so he explained, how that works and the licensing and the stuff that you have to get. And I said, "So any doctor can do that as long as they have a license to prescribe, And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, this sounds a lot like a franchise, and he and I worked together on developing a franchise model for opioid addiction clinics. And, within the next 8 months, we had opened 30 of them across the state of Pennsylvania.
wow.
It was not easy. I had to recruit doctors, which is probably the hardest group of people to reach and talk to is doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners, but primarily doctors. So we needed doctors for each of those clinics. So that's a hard thing to do. And then but we managed to do it. That was a pretty exciting time. And then that company got sold to another company, and they ended up buying three or four different companies. And so I helped them with that merger and acquisition process
Hmm.
as well. So that was
Are
exciting.
those clinics still open?
I don't even know because they've gone through different hands over the years. This
Yeah.
is about five or 6 years ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know
Yeah.
now. Hmm.
Well, tell me a little bit about. I know we talked a little bit for people who are listening in.
Right.
We had a nice conversation beforehand before we ever hit record here. So we talked a little bit about your job search and things you're running into. And I do want to hit on that a little bit because I know you've got some frustrations, as do a lot of folks who are kind of gray bearded like we are. Um, so tell me a couple of things about what you're running into out there in terms of, you know, looking
It's
for
a
a job or
Yeah, it's a vacuum, Mike. I don't know. There's no feedback. There's no it's just like, a void that you're staring into every day. It's very depressing and it's very unmotivational, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
And again, I don't want to overplay that because it also drives you to try new things. I've had a YouTube channel for almost 20 years. I opened it, I think the same year that the YouTube started. So, we just used to put, commercials up there that we had done for
right,
clients. But, you know, I, it pushes you to try new things and to explore avenues in your career. I've been playing a video game called EVE Online for 20 years, for a little over 16 years now. I started playing it with my son and really just got involved with the community. Traveled to Iceland, met the people who produced the game, became friends with them, and that was just always a hobby. But now for the last 3 years, I've run an officially licensed store front on the internet that, I produce for and that sells, pretty good every month.
yeah,
It's an earner for me, and I appreciate that. And then was involved with the board game and stuff. So that hobby has really turned into kind of a side career um, for me, which is great. But as far as professionally, well, I mean, now that's professional too, I guess, as I got paid for.
sure, right.
Um,
Yeah, I was going to say, it
but
sounds like you should be a Twitch streamer.
right, right, but more marketing and advertising related. It's been kind of that last contract job I had was a time consumer and really put me through the ringer, and for a lot of reasons I don't want to get into, and we talked about a little bit. But taking a company that's a large company like that public in an accelerated fashion was really it was a lot of stress. And
Yeah,
so since then, I've been trying to, think about something else and look for, opportunities. And I really, in the last 2 years, I've, who knows how many potential opportunities I've applied for, and I've literally gotten zero response to it.
it's incredible to me. I
It's
mean, I
amazing.
obviously, like somebody who knows you and your background, it's shocking to me because,
Well, my
uh,
favorite thing is the form letter you get sometimes, and not all the time. I
right,
maybe get a couple of, maybe 2 or 3% of the total actually bothers sending you an email. And then when they do, it's absolutely hysterical to me because the first line is always, "Thanks for applying, but at this time we've decided to, go with someone more qualified." And I always wonder, like, well, who the heck are these people who are more qualified? I
they
I
they
mean, God
found their
bless them.
unicorn, right?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I've been working in this business for a very long time, and I don't run across a lot of people who are
Yeah,
who started a career as a comic book artist, illustrator, storyteller, and moved on to creative director of a Fortune 500 advertising agency, and then ran their own, $250 million advertising agency, and then helped a $1 billion corporation go public and open 30 opioid treatment clinics in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't run across a lot of those people.
yeah. To me, um, it's almost intimidating, I would think. Um, I've always suspected that, when you have resumes of experience, people come across your desk or across your computer. First of all, you get into these applicant tracking systems, it's automatically weed people out,
Right.
right? And so if they
Yeah.
could say, oh, look at the resume and they've got more than 20 years experience, and they're gone.
Right.
Um,
Right.
or, whatever it is, but to look at that and, um,
Yeah, but the thing is though, Mike, we're talking about executive level positions,
right.
CMO
Yes,
positions, executive vice president positions, board of director positions, which I serve on a board of direct, I'm a board member for for credit counseling services, which is if you remember
sure.
back in
Yeah,
the day, I developed the Debt Monkey campaign for them.
I do remember
So
that.
I've stayed in touch with them over the years, and now I've been on their board of directors for the last, gosh, 4 years, 3 years with those guys, and it's a nonprofit that helps people with their credit debt with debt, and so these are not entry level or mid manager positions. These are executive level positions. So I don't know that. I mean, again, you know, I think age discrimination has something to do with it. I think that AI gatekeeping, we talked about this, has something to do with it. I think that, I do not have a bachelor's degree. I do have a degree, but it's not a bachelor's degree. And, but I got that degree in the 80s, in 1987. So as we discussed, I'm not sure what relevance a 1980s based degree has, in this day and age,
Yeah,
So
and it's, based on what, everything you've learned in your career and all of your experience, I mean, you're talking master's degree level
right, we're
knowledge.
we're also Gen Xers, and I think
Yeah,
that maybe millennials, maybe boomers don't appreciate what Gen X has been through, but Gen X is the generation that's been through all of it.
right.
We saw. I lived through cable television. I actually launched high-speed internet access, broadband internet with Adelphia PowerLink back in the early 90s.
Yeah,
They were the first company to offer that broadband connection, and so we've been through it all. We saw the internet, we saw mobile phones, we saw, you know, cell phone business altered. We saw all of it. I remember pre-internet BBSs
yep,
and talking to Campbell's Soup Company about spending money with us to put banner ads on BBSs, and that was before the internet.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we were doing in Philadelphia. We were doing multimedia kiosk in retail locations based on a CD-ROM. We'd
yeah,
put a multimedia, advertising and quizzes and animated shorts and things on a CD that they would run in a store on a little screen, and then it would print out a receipt. I mean, print out coupons. If you interacted with it, it would print out coupons, and that's insane to think about today. But
because if
so
you think
yeah,
about it, I mean,
but that's part of our entire history as Gen Xers is just growing up with that stuff and then having to constantly stay on top or on the bleeding edge of the technology as it came into our businesses and evolved the way we did marketing, the way we did advertising. That's what we grew. That was our whole career. We
yeah.
weren't sitting around like things haven't stayed the same in the last 40 years. They've been constantly changing and to be a person who has survived all of that, and not only survived, but mastered it all and used it as a tool, I think that has a lot of value.
Oh, I do too. You said it before that the people who taught you in college had learned their craft in the 50s and 60s.
Right. Yeah.
And, I
Yeah. A
think
lot of
between the 40s, 50s, and 80s, yeah, stuff changed, but
not
since
really.
since the 90s, I mean, we've had this revolution, societal, as far as technology goes, but certainly the impact that
Yeah.
that's had on the marketing and advertising
My
profession has been
my
profound.
very first paying job was working. It was while I was in school. So this would have been like 1984 into 1985. And the person running the business bought a Fat Mac. Was one of the first Macintoshes. It was called Fat Mac because it had, instead of the eight megabytes of RAM, it had 16.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a big deal. And we discovered how to scan artwork into the laser writer. and get it come up on screen. Instead of printing things, we were scanning with it and using Mac Paint,
Yeah.
to clean it up. So since that moment, it's just insane the amount of changes and things that have happened over the course of time. But
Right.
we lived through all of it, and I think that has a lot of value, as I said
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, I would say, you know, one of my frustrations in the process. Now, for my own story, I I was in the association business for over 20 years.
Right.
My association got merged with another, and then I lost my job a couple years after. So I kind of went through the same process of looking for work and trying to figure out what I'm going to do next.
Right.
And I found the whole process to be kind of inane. Like it's just, um, you go on LinkedIn and you look for a job, you send out resumes and you get ghosted. You look on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Flex Jobs or what,
Oh my God,
what
there's so many now.
yeah,
Yeah.
so many of them. And you never, and I look at the like guys like you with all the experience and the background I have, and frankly, a lot of people of our generation who just can't get a sniff for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it occurred to me, and this is all leading to a question for you. Um, I want to get in a room with somebody, a hiring manager,
Mm.
and get an interview and just say, here's who I am. This is what you need to know about me. And this is how I could have an impact on that job. And so I wanted to ask you, like, what would you say if you had 5 minutes with a hiring manager? If you could get that call and get in the room, not just the hiring manager, right? You're talking executive level jobs. And so you're going to have a CEO there and the CFO and probably a group interview.
Yeah. I can transform your business. Whatever it is that your dreams are for your business, I can help you realize those. I can fundamentally transform your business from the ground up. And I've done it. I have proven time and time again to be able to do that. No matter what category your business might be in, no matter what your goals are, I can put a plan together and put the team together and help those people achieve what it is you want to achieve with that business. You want to go public, you want to go into an IPO, you want to set yourself up for purchase and also find a purchaser for your particular business. I can help you do that too. I've worked with Sequoia Capital.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I the a client of mine back in the day who ran an international wireless consultancy in the wireless communications business. He sold his company. We helped him sell his company in 18 months to VeriSign for $250 million. He went on to become the CEO of AT&T,
Hmm.
in a large part because of that. On his own, he was a Deloitte person. He was smart. He is smart. I won't mention his name because he'll probably not be happy to be publicly called out, but a really great guy. And, um, you know, a big part of why the Penguins are still in Pittsburgh too, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But again, this is the kind of things that I have experience with that I've done over my career, in helping entrepreneurs, helping, establish businesses. All businesses get to a point where the sales start to plateau, the and how do you get past that? How do you what is it about your company that can help that can get you past that and continue the growth path that you're on? And so that's the sweet spot, right? And
Yeah.
then who do you turn to and who can you trust to help guide you there? Me.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
that's,
that's what I
that's,
do.
that's,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Um, and,
And you
and
know what? The only thing I've never had, and that's the same speech I used to give clients. I probably gave it to you when you were at SSBC
probably, yeah.
or some variation of that, and the only other the warning I always gave clients, especially, was, "Are you ready? Are you?" And sometimes, to be honest, the truth was they weren't ready. They may have thought they were, but they weren't. And when the phone starts ringing, well, I mean, this day and age, who knows? But when those orders start coming in, are you ready for a 75% increase in sales? Or you think you might be, but maybe you're not, and that can be catastrophic for a business too, especially one that's trying to find their footing, and so are you ready for that? Because that sometimes can take a lot of work to get to the point where you're ready to grow as
Yeah.
well.
Which I imagine is also a fair question in an interview because, presumably you're coming in for a CMO role,
Right.
and they're not bringing you in there to maintain the status quo.
No,
They want
no.
you to supercharge things, and that's your
Right.
specialty.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you ready for that? And
Yeah,
nothing exposes weaknesses and faults more than success.
yeah,
Right. So, and that's
right,
true personally as well. If
right.
somebody gives
That's
you $15 million, they're gonna suddenly find out you have a gambling addiction.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully, when I win the Powerball tonight or whatever they're
Right.
going up
Right.
to.
Yeah. How many of those Powerball winners still have their money? Not,
Exactly.
not many.
No. Yeah. No, it's interesting, and that's been one of my frustrations as well. Is just the inability, or the lack of opportunity to get in the room and understanding why that is.
Yeah. And,
Uh,
and, the other thing too, I was thinking about this morning actually, is how the way things are set up now, with all the social networking and everything you have to do, is it forces you to self-promote yourself, right? To
right.
constantly be thinking about promoting yourself and not exposing your weaknesses or your self-doubts or your depression. You have to present this image of yourself as constantly being successful all the time. And
Yeah.
you see it from people, the videos, the TikToks, the things that we are forced to do, they're always positive, right? There's always smiles and how great the company's doing and how well everybody's getting along and how successful and then you watch as your network, people, you help try to support them as much as possible and be there for them as well. And, you and I have done that for each other over the last 10 years. We haven't talked in person for a long time, but, we've always been there, liking each other's posts or writing comments or whatever. And you try to be as supportive as you can. But then you see people who are going through difficult times and they're forced to, have that spin all the time,
Yes.
constantly having to being forced to basically be extremely positive in very difficult situations, and I think I don't know where we get to where we can fix that, but we're not very tolerant of people expressing some self-doubt or I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that one, but I think it's unnatural.
I we've got some barking going on here. So
Yep. We have a third guest now. That's awesome.
when I uh, anyway, when I lost
Yeah.
my job a couple years ago, the kind of what I can remember posting a long post on LinkedIn and explaining, how grateful I was, blah, 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 for the opportunity and trying to not burn bridges and be positive about it.
Right.
Um, but the reality was that uh, it blew up my world, right? But you can't go out and publicly say that because,
Right. Right. Yeah, you just got
like,
laid off and you can't go, God dang it, I wasn't planning on this. And it's right
right.
before the holidays. And, how am I going to pay my mortgage? You know,
Yeah.
my
And,
wife's
and
yelling at me for bills and, how am I going to do this?
And the worst part was, and again, uh, and people who know me know where I worked, but so I would try not to denigrate anybody, but
Sure. Of course.
I was not, I didn't get along with my boss. She and I never saw eye to eye. And, as part of the merger, I came in, I was a senior executive at SSPC and she was a senior executive here, and they felt like I should work for her. It was not a great match. And, I think for years, a couple years that I was there, she was looking to get rid of me.
Mm,
Um,
that's a
and
shame.
ultimately, yeah, and ultimately that's what happened. And um, interestingly enough, the majority of the management at that organization isn't there anymore because it turned out they weren't very good at their jobs.
Mm,
So when I look back at it and I said, "Oh wow, I can't believe that as they're going through and cutting staff, I'm one of the people who goes. Well, these are some of the people that are going, and
right.
yet these people are staying in place. I mean that organization, from what I hear, is still struggling.
Hmm. That's a
Post
shame.
merger
Right.
is what it is, but they've managed to alienate at least half of their customers because they don't care about them anymore.
Right.
My opinion, of course.
Right. Right.
So there's
That's
still some wonderful people who work there, but it was, how can you go out and publicly be honest on LinkedIn or wherever you are to say, I've been wounded by that. It hurt me because that was so much of my life and so much of who
sure.
I was as a person.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't be vulnerable like that publicly.
No, it's difficult, and it's difficult to put those, those brand clothes on when you get it when you're part of a company. You have to believe in what, that was the thing. Every single client, was I always felt like I was part of their business, and I was part of the reason they were going to be successful. And you
Yeah,
have to do that because to care, right? To build
right.
empathy, to feel, what they're going through and what their goals are, and you have to allow yourself to have those because it becomes part of your passion, right? And yeah, working for an employer is like that too. No matter what level of what level on the chain you are, from the very top to the very bottom, and in some way you feel that it's part of your life. It's your life experience, and going in there every day and working. So it's tough
Especially when
when
you're
that's
there for a
taken out.
long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's hard when that's taken away from you.
yeah, yeah. It takes a little bit to come to terms with that.
Hmm.
Um, so, but fortunately, we're smart people and we're
Oh yeah,
motivated,
right,
we're
right.
ambitious, and there are
We'll
things we
figure it
want to
out.
do in life. So,
Right, right.
but it's tough out there. And I look at that and I see other people on LinkedIn. I think part of the big process that my frustration with I see wrong with the whole kind of the ludicrousness of the hiring process is, it's still reliant on, LinkedIn's a big part of it now. So you've got to have your LinkedIn profile, but it's still reliant on resumes and applications and very impersonal, sort of blind things that are easy to ignore.
Right,
Um,
right.
so easy to ignore a resume that comes in, so easy to ignore an online application.
Yeah.
And it's so impersonal, right? There's really not as
But Mike, here's the thing. I was the CEO of an agency for 12 years, probably received 10, 15,000 resumes from various people over the time I was there. And I will tell you that every single one of those that came through email, because sometimes they would mail them to us, and I didn't write letters back to people, but the ones that came through email, which is primarily where they came from, got a response from me.
yeah,
Every one of them, and not I didn't copy and paste it either. I sat down every morning and I wrote them an email. I am not currently looking for a position, but your resume is awesome. And I'm going, and I did. I put them in a folder and kept them because when we were looking, we would go and we would pull those resumes out and look through them by hand and decide who
right.
we're going to call in for interviews. And so I wasn't lying to anybody. And I don't think it really took all that much time out of my day to be personal and to respond to every applicant
Yeah.
for a position at my company. And so I did that.
And I think that's fantastic. You wonder a lot why it doesn't happen so much today. And I probably a lot of the answer is, LinkedIn easy apply and things like that, where you just
Mm-mm.
click and off it goes. And I can remember when we were recruiting at SSPC and we had the jobs posted on LinkedIn, and you would get hundreds of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sort of, out of left field candidates for like a one position, and they had absolutely no background or relevance
Right.
to what the
Right. Yeah.
resume
There's
came in
those.
for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess I could see to a certain extent why it would be easy to ignore, but there's got to be a mechanism in place to sort through the
Yeah.
qualified and the unqualified.
Exactly. I can definitely see a need for, especially larger corporations who, sometimes you'll see some of these positions are getting 3 or 4 thousand applicants, and
Yeah,
LinkedIn's only one of, 20 job posting sites that are probably so, who knows how many they're really getting. And I can understand the need to develop an AI, sort of gatekeeping system to weed out some of that. But I think if you want to hire the best people, then you need to do that as a person. It's a
Yeah,
personal choice. So much of what success is in your story that you were telling about your association experience, the last one is exemplar of how that works because you're not just there are a lot of very talented people in the job market, but it's also a personality thing. It's a who are you going to be working with, and do they fit into the structure? We had a very distinctive culture at Giant Ideas, and everybody who worked there was part of that. And it wasn't just me hiring somebody; it was kind of the whole group hiring somebody. And
yeah,
we made a couple of mistakes, and we self-corrected those because people came in who we thought were very talented and who were very talented, but their personality or the way they did business or the way they thought of things wasn't part of our culture,
yeah,
and they just didn't fit in. And most of the time they knew it too. They were just waiting for somebody to tell them that. And so, we had to pull the plug on a few people who came in, even months after they started because it was just obvious they weren't going to be part of it. And
yeah,
I don't know how you teach an AI to discover that through a resume. You really need to talk to people. I don't understand. I think that there needs to be, more face on face and personality. If you care about your company and your corporation and the positions, and these are key. This is what I don't get. We talked a little bit about this before the recording started, but these are not. This is not entry level. I need a forklift
yeah,
driver. These are key, CMO, CFO positions or executive vice president positions, or this is critical to the success of your corporation or your company or your nonprofit or your association or whatever it
yeah,
might be. You need to make good decisions. And what does that speak to the leadership if they're not willing to put in the time to do that?
yeah. Well, you made an interesting comment before that I think is important, which was you haven't used a resume to get a job since the 90s.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah,
networking. It's all the people you know, and being able to. And frankly, whenever same thing for me, when I lost a job a couple of years ago, the job I ended up at was through networking. So
right, right.
um, it's there's some value in hire by resume, but I think when you get into these positions, Gen X type positions that we're looking for, that are senior leadership,
Yes.
a resume and a blind application on LinkedIn or Indeed isn't going to be good enough.
No, there's no story in a resume. I don't have room to write out what went on or what the challenges were or what I faced when I had to do it. They want you to, put down as many of the statistics and things, but again, that's just very dry. Here's the thing, some clients or some, positions, you may have been able to grow the business by, 350%, and that's all well and good. But you know what? I need to know how you did that because, sometimes anybody could have done that. The company was positioned in such a way that, anybody I put in there was going to get 350% growth out of that company. Where another situation, 8.5% growth is astronomical to what they were trying to accomplish. There's no way to compare these numbers. They're just numbers. So what's the story behind that situation? And what was your role in that? And how did you accomplish that? Because it's not a apples and apples, it's an apples and oranges thing, So what are we doing here? Why do I even need a resume if I have LinkedIn? I have my LinkedIn profile, which I, work on very diligently. Why do I even need a resume? Why can't I just send you a link to my LinkedIn profile and a link to my portfolio and be done with it? But we're still using resumes in
And
the modern age.
a lot of places are still asking for cover letters.
Oh my goodness. And have you been through some of these application processes for corporations and how different they are? There was one the other day, and I didn't even apply for this job because they were asking me for my high school transcripts and, my GPA. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What?
I love the ones that are upload your resume, we'll pre-fill everything for you. Or
Hmm.
upload your resume, but you still have to fill out all your experience as well, right?
Yes,
Like you
I
can't
love
just
that
get
one.
it off the resume.
Yeah, yeah. And not only pre-fill all your experience, but who is your manager and what's their phone number?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think he's dead. I think he was 97 when he died. I don't
Or
know.
or do we have permission to contact so and so?
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, they may be alive, they may not, and
I don't know. I don't
they
know.
weren't too happy when I left, so I don't think you should contact them.
Yeah, I don't know where that agency owner in Philadelphia lives right now, but I
Yeah,
don't know if you'll even remember me. It's
yeah.
very strange. It's very strange.
It's it
They're all so
it's
different, you know.
yeah. It
And
really is. I feel like it's a broken system. And ultimately, I think when I want to, as this podcast grows, I want to have some HR folks on here and some recruiters on here and have those discussions about,
like,
what's
yeah, I think I would like to
how's the
ask
system
somebody.
changing? Yeah.
My favorite one is in 150 words or less, tell us something about yourself that that would be surprising.
Well,
I love that one. So
yeah.
I always put, you know what I do? I put, believe it or not, I have been to Mars and back, or I scuba dive with Jacques Cousteau and I helped invent the scuba. I always write something like that. That's maybe
Yeah.
why I don't get jobs from those people. I
Yeah,
think
you
that
gotta have some fun
someone's got
with
to
it
be
though, right?
surprising, right? You're
Yeah.
challenging me here. I got to be super creative.
Secretly, I'm Batman, right?
Right, right. Secretly, I am Batman. Yes, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's a good one. I'll have to use that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's all a game, I guess, and a game we're playing, but a game that's a very important one. It has impact on our lives and the lives of our families. And I don't find it very amusing. Well, I mean, to a point, I do because, like I explained to you earlier, it got to be so frustrating to me that I was worried that I had nothing to talk about on LinkedIn. So I was like, without being, coming across as bitter or old or curmudgeon or something.
Yeah.
And I was feeling frustrated about that. And I told my wife, and we were talking about it. And I said, I should do it through humor. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do a funny comic strip about it. And that way I can poke fun at LinkedIn and all this stuff that we have to go through without directly saying anything and just, have some fun with it. And I mean, I wasn't even really thinking about it long term as much as I need something for Monday.
Right. Yeah.
And I had just had 2 weeks before I had had a meeting with someone in person, and it was about a month, actually, about a month before, and I had a meeting in person, over coffee at a coffee shop, and we had a great conversation like this for an hour and a half, you know,
Yeah.
and I never heard from him again. Never, don't respond to text, don't respond to emails. I never got an email back. I did the typical email when I got home. Hey, I really enjoyed meeting with you. It was great to catch up and tell stories from the old days and all this. And
Yeah.
if I get any help, nothing, never. And that was where the first one came from. It's like, hey, it was great catching up with you. Great catching up with you too. And then I'm never going to hear from you again, am I? No. It's like, how often? I mean, this what is it? What is that about? You know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And one of there was an organization in my industry that I thought would have been a good match for me, and some of that
Hmm.
I'd been affiliated with for years. And they're one of my first discussions after I lost my job, and we couldn't come to an agreement on a type of position or consulting or anything. And ultimately, I would reach out to them, and they stopped answering. Um, and it was
It's a shame. It
Yeah,
really.
it was a very familiar organization. That was upsetting to me because I felt like here's my legitimate expertise for the past 20 years,
Right.
and
Yeah.
how there couldn't be a fit there, I don't know.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
I used to
but
days clients who didn't choose us, who went with another agency. I used to just stay in touch with them, just doing, because that's a valuable contact, right? There
yeah,
was a guy at a pizza shop in Ohio. I probably drove crazy because he picked Blattner Bruner instead of us, and so every like I had it on my calendar every 6 months or so. I'd send him a note, email him, hey,
yeah,
yes, remember us? How's things going with Blattner? And he'd write back, it's fine, don't write me anymore. And I'm, not giving up on you, Steve, or whatever his name was. And yeah, so I mean, but I think that persistence and being persnickety is a something you have to do. But I don't know exactly how to translate that into the digital landscape that we find ourselves in right now
Yeah.
without being annoying.
Well, so a couple more questions, because I do have some pre-scribed questions here
Oh, sure. Yeah, shoot.
that I want to get through. Just because I want to give you an opportunity to, because like you said, you haven't had an interview, so let me interview you.
Okay.
And I'll try not to
Sure.
be one of the dumb interviews that you end up on.
Right, right,
You don't have
right.
to tell me what kind of tree you are.
Yeah, you'll be in a
Um,
comic strip next week.
there
Yeah.
you go. I would be honored,
That'd be
frankly.
awesome.
That's it. So how about this question? This is kind of esoteric. How has a job search changed you as a person and what you've experienced?
Well, fundamentally it has actually worked out really great for me because it's so frustrating and so demeaning that it's pushed me to do things that I probably, I always thought of myself as a creative advertiser and marketer and not really an illustrator or an artist. Illustration and art was always something that I'd do if the project asked for it, like but not as a career. And I just over the years I've been diddling with that and trying to develop my skills in that regard, but not being able to has really pushed me to develop my skills in that area in ways that I thought I left behind. I started out my career as wanting to work in the comic book industry and ended up being distracted into advertising and graphic design and the path I took. But finding myself getting back to those roots, and not so much in the comic book industry now, but the video game industry
Yeah,
and stuff. But it's kind of the same thing, really. And I'm having a blast with it. I love it. I love the community that's there. It's much more positive and supportive than I found advertising and marketing to be, and and not so backstabby, and
yeah,
like that. And um, I'm having a blast with it, and working with small creative groups, all over the world, and also the global nature of it. The company I was working with on the board game was in Poland, and the licensee is in Reykjavik, Iceland, and that's pretty cool.
yeah,
So it's pushed me. Not finding a job is a motivational, right? Like you still have to pay the bills and figure out something for yourself to do. And I can't. This is the thing. I have always been unable to not do something. So I'm busy. I'm staying busy, even though maybe not all of it pays money, but it's something that I feel fulfilling, right? And I want to try. So, I've been lately. I've been reaching out to editorial boards, pitching stories and articles. I've been thinking about doing more of that. Like, how can I? Because earlier you asked me, like, what do I bring to the table, and part of that is mentoring and telling stories and sharing and helping people grow. And I'm thinking, well, if I can't do that at a corporation or someone won't hire me to do it, then maybe I can do it in a different way, right? And maybe, write stuff or share,
sure.
that way, And so I've been exploring that too. So I think that that might have something to do with the future as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your your experience is extensive, and this is going to probably be a dumb question, but I'm going
Mhm.
to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Why should an employer hire you over other candidates?
Well, I mean, I bring a very unique combination of things to the table that I don't know that one person can do. I'm a creative director, graphic designer who's also a CMO. Knows his way around the marketing business and how media works, how to influence and manipulate target audiences and build silos and all the things that have to go into putting a compelling and effective marketing campaign together and who's had proven experience in that. And I think that that's a unique combination of criteria that is hard to come by. And I have all that in my head, in my and a proven track record of doing it over and over and over again for a wide variety of clients. And this is one of the things that's frustrating to me too, Mike, and we haven't touched on, is the idea of linear versus nonlinear experience. And so I'll say it this way is a person who's worked in one category their entire career. So let's just pick one out of our hat. Let's just say banking, right? It's banking, not financial, but from a banking perspective. So they got out of school, they went to school for finance, they went into a bank and they've been working in a bank for 20 years, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's a great career path. I'm sure, and you could throw anything. I'm not picking on banking. I just made that one up. But that's a linear career path, right? It might have
Sure.
been with three or four different banks. It might have been with the same one. Who knows? But that's a linear path. A nonlinear path is like the one I have, which is, I can trace it all the way back to the early days and go through this weird convoluted thing where I've done these things. I honestly believe that in certain situations, especially leadership positions, CMO level, CEO level, COO level, that the nonlinear background is more appropriate for those kinds of leadership positions than a linear one is because I've ex I'm bringing a lot of industries into that industry that you're asking me to run, whereas somebody who's had a linear background is only bringing that one industry with them. They
Yeah.
have a tremendous amount of experience in banking, but banking's not what it used to be, and we need some out of the box thinking, some creativity in how we're going to, move banking forward into the future, right? And maybe something that I saw at, Campbell's Soup or an SaaS provider or a B2B provider or a wireless consultancy or somewhere along the line or a sports marketer is going to be extremely valuable for how we're going to move that industry forward. And, I'm going to be able to help you do that. Whereas a linear experience is not so much capable of doing that.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic point, and I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, it really, especially at a leadership level, enables you to punch above your weight class, right? I mean, you bring all that varied experience, and you've
Right.
seen.
Yeah. And if I'm hiring a vice president of trust funds for the bank, I want a linear guy
Yeah,
who went to Deloitte and who's worked his butt off in trust funds for the last 20 years or 15
right.
years to be in charge of that. I'm not an idiot. I want that expert to, but as far as the overall leadership of the marketing department, then maybe I want somebody who's had more of a breadth of experience than someone who has a tremendous amount of one experience.
Yeah, when you look at a lot of the VP and SVP level job listings that crop up out there, they're saying, well, we want 10 years, 15 years of experience and blah, 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 but
Right.
usually they
Right.
are pretty focused and linear. You have to have had the
I see it
experience with
all
the
the time.
what, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
Whatever the
I think that's a
job is,
great
they
point.
want they want a lot of experience in that job. And it's
Right.
like, well, yeah, I don't what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, you have to have like 1 or 2 years of experience managing people.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Like,
Good luck.
yeah.
So
Managing
love
people.
it. Love it.
Yeah, this is funny. It's just such a
Yeah.
game. And I don't know that anybody's really, and that's, if I could sit down and talk to someone from HR in your position, and that would be some of the questions that I would have for them is how are you really thinking about this or not? Is this just because honestly, a lot of them feel like they've been copied and pasted.
Yeah.
The rejection emails all feel copy and pasted, like they're coming from a template. Nobody, I did, amazingly, um, I did get down to the wire on a job out of New York a couple of months ago, which I was very excited about. And so I don't know if I can believe it or not, but that's part of like the last four or five handful of applicants. And their rejection letter was awesome. Somebody had sat down and really thought about it. It stood out to me. It was really well written and made me feel kind of not bad about not getting the job, and so well done to them. But that's one out of thousands.
Yeah.
Um, But what is that? Is that just laziness? A lot of these job descriptions, and oh, I love the ones that will go on forever. Have you seen those? Like, it's like 7 pages. I'm like, well, who is possibly meeting all of this criteria?
It's the search for the elusive unicorn,
A
right? I
magic
mean,
unicorn, right?
yeah, it is. You look at those. To me, those are kind of red flag jobs, right?
Right,
You're
right. Yeah,
throwing all
yeah.
that crap in there, and somebody's supposed to go, "Yeah, I can do all that." Where in reality, maybe you
Right. It's
can,
kind of a trap, isn't it?
right?
If you
Yeah,
if you think you could do all of that, you're somebody who's got some mental issues, I think. Because there's no one alive that could do all of that. No,
yeah.
impossible.
One
I'm,
of the
I'm
big
reading
questions.
along. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. What? No. I mean, how?
Like, are you
I haven't
serious
I
about
haven't
that?
run a mercenary group in sub-Saharan Africa, but
Right.
that's what it feels like. It's like, can you
Yeah.
can you kill a guy with a knife and a shoe? It's like, well, maybe I don't know.
I never tried the shoe bit, but maybe we'll see.
Mm,
Yeah. Well, let
yeah,
me ask you this question. I know we've been going a while.
sure, it's been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate your joining me today. Pups back here. So let me ask you this because it's I think one of the things that um, we as a generation have in terms of our employability is people look at you and they go, um, you know, especially if you're like I'm 55, right?
Sure.
And I'm not planning to work forever, but I if I enjoy what I'm going to do, but I don't plan on stopping either.
Right. I might
Um,
work for actually. Yeah.
yeah, and so
I
so the question is like, how long do you plan to keep working?
Forever.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't,
so,
I don't know that our generation feels the same way that others have about retirement.
yeah,
And if I do think about retirement, I think it would be exactly what I've done today. Like I
yeah,
I finished up an illustration and sent it off to Poland this morning. I did a social media thing that was called Art versus Artists. So I saw it on X the other day. It was artist picture in the middle and then some of their work around it that they've done this year. So I did one of those. I posted it on X, on Blue Sky, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and so a little self promotion. And then I read your questions. I read through your questions, and I thought I don't want to give too much thought to these because I'd like it to be spontaneous. And then we had a podcast together. And then the rest of
okay,
the afternoon, this is what I'm going to be doing. The rest of the afternoon is planning out my weekend. I also did Monday's comic strip. So I
okay,
finished I finished Monday's comic strip today, so I don't have to do it over the weekend. So that's great. And I already have a couple of ideas for some new ones. If that would be to me like this is the perfect day of retiring. If
yeah,
I could continue doing this kind of thing the rest of my career, that'd be great. How am I going to make a living at that? I don't know, but staying busy, staying involved, that I really don't have. I'm not a person who and I have friends who would like to go fly fishing in Montana or build a garden in their backyard or I don't have a overriding goal like that. I'm doing what I like to do
yeah,
because that's what I like to do, and I made a career out of this is what I'm interested in. In
yeah,
high school I decided I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a creative person and that changed my entire life. And my father worked in the coal mines for 40 years, and God bless him, he's still with us. But that took a toll on his life, and I did not want to take that path. I wanted to
yeah,
get out. I grew up in southern West Virginia in a coal mining community. My father, like I said, worked in the coal mines, and I didn't want to do that. And I purposely went on a different road, and I haven't regretted a minute of it. This
yeah.
is what I want to do for a living, and this is what I enjoy doing. So this is like today would be the perfect day of retirement for me.
So there's no feeding pigeons on the bench in the park.
No,
Yeah,
no, I don't want to be one of those guys who, dies 3 days after he, gets the gold watch, right? And
yeah.
I want to stay busy and stay creative as long as I can, as long as I'm on this earth, stay
It's
involved.
interesting. I belong to a peer group with a group called Entrepreneurs Forever.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's a pretty cool group. And
Yeah,
we had a
that's
meeting yesterday, and one of the things we were talking about because sort of the journey I've been on has been you know when I was growing up and when you were growing up, we were taught, go to school, go to college, get a job, work somewhere for 30 years, retire and die.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and and really the epiphany for me, especially the past couple of years, has been, well, you don't have to do that. You can,
Yep.
I used to like to say to my staff at SSPC that this is America, we can do whatever we want, right? Well,
Mhm.
the reality is that you can have a job having a random podcast, right? And you can have a job, doing illustrations for a board game out of Poland,
Right.
or the
Right.
video game, I guess it is.
Right.
You don't have to follow this, and you said earlier, the linear path of,
Mhm.
you know, get
Here's
a
how it's,
job, then
here's
die.
the steps you got to take, right, for your
Yeah.
career. Yeah. And
And so that's kind of what's been inspiring to me,
good.
um, the past couple of years, especially frankly this year, is so many opportunities to do things that actually interest me.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if you saw it, but a couple weeks ago, Coldplay came out with a video and Dick Van Dyke was in it,
yeah,
99 years old, and I'm like, this is my hero, right?
yeah,
He's still dancing and laughing and he's 99. As long as, God willing, we're all physically able to continue doing, all of us are going to have that moment too, where you're no longer able to do it. But as long as I'm able, I'm going to be creating something, whether
yeah,
it's the written word or a visual or a graphic or a logo for a friend or, whatever it happens to be, I'm going to be still doing it.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I will say this as we kind of wrap up here. When I do have some HR and recruiter folks on, maybe you want to come on and be a co-host.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Maybe this is something that we don't abandon after one episode, and it's a subject that's fascinating to me, not only from a personal standpoint but also a professional one.
yeah,
And you know, is how does this work, and is it working? And again, it's kind of like when you hire me to come into your business, right? And I feel like in a way that I've been sort of forced into the HR side of things because I feel like it's not working and I feel like it's personalizing everyone who I talk to. And my wife is involved, like I said, with a large international conglomerate who does software stuff and technology, and they're merging with another company. And um, friends of hers are getting laid off, right before the holidays, which is just corporate wonderful land. It's almost Christmas. Goodbye. That kind
yeah,
of thing. And then we watch those, people she's worked with and their LinkedIn experience and how they're doing. And I think it's very demoralizing and depersonalizing. And how do we change that? And so maybe there's something to this that comes out of it, that there's a better way to do this. I used to love LinkedIn. I thought it was a great networking tool, but it seems to not be such a networking thing now. As just another, another social Twitter, blue sky thing where everybody's liking stuff, but nobody's commenting or um, working together or collaborating. Which is
yeah.
what I
There's
thought.
not a lot of substance, to be honest with you, and I'd say one of the
We're all
things that
selling now.
restrict.
It's like it feels
Or,
like everybody's selling. Selling
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's
selling a
what
positive, selling a world that doesn't exist, right?
right. Yeah, I have noticed that at least a certain number of people who are posting about their frustrations with
Mhm.
job searches or whatever, and that those seem to get a lot of engagement because I think people are being honest and real.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
I
think
agree.
it's important to find a way to do that for
Yeah,
people, and
I,
hopefully that I can create a platform here of this podcast
I
that
think there's something to this. I think
you know,
it will resonate with a lot of people who are in similar situations, no matter their age, no matter their
sure,
background. But I think that a lot of people, a subject like this resonates with, or is going to resonate with a lot of people.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, we'll see where it goes.
All right, yeah, let me know.
Yeah. Well, hey, I
In
appreciate
touch.
you,
Yeah, thanks.
helping to record this inaugural episode, and we've been on this call for a while, so I
Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time. I will,
yeah, appreciate it.
we'll see what we can do in the future here. So
All right,
thank you again
thank
for
you,
joining.
Michael. Yeah, take care.
Thank you for listening to the I Want a Effing Job podcast. Look for more episodes on Spotify.